life. As Prime Minister of all citizens, I aspire to have a broad understanding regarding the amendment to the judicial system. And so we have been in negotiations for 3 months. The coalition had a line of suggestions to the opposition, one after the other, for 3 consecutive months. Unfortunately, the hand that we reached out remained hanging in the air. Maybe they feared the very extremist entities which say we don't want any compromise. They only aim at one thing: to wreak havoc in the country so that they can topple down the government, and it doesn't have to do anything with the reform. And yet, even if we do not have a partner for discussion, coalition exercised authority and responsibility. It removed the overall clause of reasonableness. I'm not going to go tonight into the various details of the bill. However, I would like to say a general remark here that is going to negate the claim that that there is a ruin to democracy. The minimization of the reasonableness standard had to do with the system, and I'd like to read several things. Yair Lapid said in the past, it's not right for the court to change world standard while it is working under the reasonable assumption of a person. This is completely subjective, and the Knesset never included it in its bills and rules. And I agree. Gidon Saar, head of opposition, had in his own agenda a very, very extreme amendment to the reasonableness standard. And he said because of that, the judges are putting their discretion into their values, and this goes beyond the public elect. And I agree there as well. Aharon Barak said in 2019, I'm ready to call off the reasonableness standard. Perhaps it's due time. This is what he said. So if, according to Barak, it is time to cancel the reasonableness standard, it goes without saying that it can be minimized and not make this amendment into the end of democracy. And so, citizens of Israel, everything that is being said about ruining democracy, it's completely and absurd. It's an attempt to frighten you with no base in reality. The amendment to the reasonableness standard is going to strengthen democracy and not endanger it. But what will endanger democracy? That's refusal to serve in the army is risking all of the citizens. In democracy, the army has to answer to the government. When entities in the army are trying to threaten the policy of the government, this is absolutely inconvincible. This will bring the end of democracy. And so a responsible government and a responsible country and state will not agree to that, and every responsible citizen must go against it and object to it. In a democracy, the hand that makes the decision is not the hand that holds the weapon. It's the hand that puts the vote whenever there is election. If you preach towards refusing military service, you have to know that this is going to lead to refusal for service on the other side, and then things will be bad. In the past, many of the citizens in Israel did not agree with government's decision. They objected to the Oslo Accord, to the disengagement from Gush Katif. a government that was established by completely not adhering to promises, and though they saw things that endanger the mere existence of Israel, no one threatened with refusing military service. Unfortunately, those who in the past requested and demanded punishment for any show of refusal to serve are now the main people who are inciting against complete refusal to serve. They are aware of the harsh implications, and yet they continue with the same cry out. Perhaps it's too late and too little, but it's very good that now several heads of the opposition are talking against refusing military service, and I expect zero tolerance against this very dangerous phenomenon. We will not accept it. Citizens of Israel, in the 16 years I have been serving as Prime Minister, I always viewed myself as everyone's Prime Minister. For a single minute, not forgetting the challenges we're working towards, the economy and towards the lowering the prices of life in Israel, expanding peace accords, working against terrorism, and we're working towards those goals all the time. Even at these very moments, I have to tell you that we are working tirelessly to find an understanding regarding the reasonableness standard. I hope it will be successful. But even if not, the coalition's door will always be open to the opposition and to you, citizens of Israel, because even in this turmoil, we remember, and I always remember one thing: we are one people with one destiny. We don't have any other country. We are brothers.
We just heard Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speak regarding the crisis in Israel, about the ongoing efforts by the government to enact what he calls its judicial reforms, and particularly the measure, the law which is due to be voted, the bill due to be voted into law this coming week, the so-called reasonableness bill, which would limit the power of judges basically to overrule decisions by government officials, by high government officials. Prime Minister, its opponents say that would remove an important check and balance in Israeli democracy. Its supporters says it will strengthen democracy by strengthening the power of elected officials. Prime Minister Netanyahu basically giving no ground this evening, saying the bill, those who condemn the bill are exaggerating it, it won't change it, and condemning the growing number of Israeli army reservists who say they won't serve, do their volunteer duty if this bill passes. Batya Leventhal, your impression, our political affairs reporter, your impression of the speech.
I think that this was to be expected. There was a lot of talk just before Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was about to address the nation on basically one of two options: either that he was going to come out and criticize the opposition and also defend the reasonableness bill, which is exactly what he did. The other side of that was that he would possibly come out with some kind of a statement that says that, at least with regards to the wording of the reasonableness bill, they may try and soften that. Now, why I didn't think earlier in the day that that would be the most probable statement that he would put out is because of the fact that, as you mentioned, on Sunday they're going to be voting on the second and the third reading. It really is a massive push. This is not a usual thing that the first, second, and third reading, that any of them are sort of crammed into one session. They normally go through one at a time.
One session, one basically week from the beginning, from the first reading to the passage.
So this is unique in itself, that the second and the third is being pushed through on Sunday, which I think is what's causing so much alarm, on top of the nitty-gritty of what's actually inside the reasonableness bill, which the Prime Minister himself said he was not going to go into. But I think this very much touches on the fact that we have a massive problem in Israel at the moment with regards to the reservists, and we've been noticing that making headlines for the last couple of days in Israel. And I think that the Prime Minister needed to touch on that because it was very important. But what's also important is to make the distinction that the reservists that are refusing service are those that are in elite units, such as the Air Force, that are pilots, and they are volunteers. So again, this is a very crucial split, if you want, because this is not necessarily reservists that are refusing orders and refusing duty. It's also not active soldiers. We're talking about reservists that when an issue or some kind of an operation comes up where they need these expertise, these are the people that end up coming through. So again, on the one hand, it is not the entire army. On the other hand, it is a very big sector that we're looking at. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, knowing that the custom and the tradition in Israel, even till today, is that people will turn on their screens at 8 o'clock at night. This was an address that needed to be said, but it didn't really have much substance to it other than what we thought he was going to say.
And I don't think necessarily to achieve the aims he wanted. Bachi Leventhal, thank you for that. Then stay with us. We'll have more on the rundown after a break.